That was great. Boy, if we've learned anything in Pennsylvania, it's the importance of judges, yes? Our next speaker is Tim Goeglein, who is the Vice President for External and Government Relations at Focus on the Family in Washington. He served in various high-level government posts for the past 2 decades. I think I first met him when he worked as a special assistant to President George W. Bush, where he was the Deputy Director of the White House Office of Public Liaison from 2001 to 2008, and he's also served as a Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. As an author myself, I always want to make sure that when we've got somebody up here with books that we tell you about it. He's written The Man in the Middle, Faith and Politics in the George W. Bush Era. His latest book is American Restoration, How Faith, Family, and Personal Sacrifice Can Heal Our Nation. And he just told me he has a third coming out, which I think he said was More Perfect Union. So without further ado, here is Tim Goeglein.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you. It is wonderful to be at my 4th Pennsylvania Leadership Conference. I'm especially grateful to Loman Henry and all of my favorite Pennsylvanians, Michael Geer of the Pennsylvania Family Institute, who works so closely with Focus on the Family, Colin and Pricey Hanna with Let Freedom Ring, and of course my favorite academic and all of our favorite academic, Paul Kengor, who, by the way, appears in a brand new film from Focus on the Family, which came out 3 weeks ago. We've already had 750,000 views. It's on Ronald Reagan and his faith. You can find it easily on the Focus on the Family website with one click of your mouse. And of course, as Jeff referenced, after 35 years of living and working in Washington, D.C., it is so great to be back in America this morning. I've missed the country, and I was looking at your beautiful flag, which is one of the flags that has not yet been attacked in cancel culture, although, as you all know, virtue, liberty, and independence are woven into your flag, so prepare for Wokistan to come for you. By the way, how ironic that of all the places that we could be meeting on a Saturday morning to speak about cancel culture, that we are meeting a mere 106 miles from the front door of Independence Hall and a mere 24 miles from the Visitor Center at Valley Forge. I think we have to remember that the British thought that they could cancel us as well, and we know how that worked out. Cancel culture has had many chapters in the short book of American history. But the deeper irony is that cancel culture as we know it actually began in the elite universities of the West Coast in the so-called free speech movement. And many people thought that it was about, liberals who wanted to remake conservative institutions. That was completely incorrect. It was about radicals who wanted to remake liberal institutions. They succeeded in the elite universities. They moved to most of the public colleges and universities. And today, 2021, it is actually objectively fair to say that with very few exceptions, all of the private and public universities and colleges have been swept into cancel culture and wokeism. The tenured radicals, by and large, have succeeded. And now here we are in June of 2021, living amid the Great Awakening. We are in a massive contest of ideas. But make no mistake, this is a cultural revolution that is bigger than the moral and the social revolution of the 1960s and 70s. And whoever wants this generation of young people is going to get them, because the other side fully understands and has worked to inculcate a generation of cultural amnesia and cultural smog. And I think it is sobering, to say the least, that the incubators of the next generation of Americans are by and large the public schools. And I think one of the largest historical questions is, why do people overwhelmingly, not in the center and center left, but people overwhelmingly in the center right and right, why do we Americans continue to send our children into the public school system or into the better private school system, and then appear to be shocked that just a few years later, they seem to emerge ipso facto with another worldview? In other words, we in America are living presently in a combination of the Twilight Zone, Alice in Wonderland, and the Orwellian moment. And let us all be sobered by the warning of George Orwell. He said that the first duty of an intelligent person is to go restate the obvious. We are in a moment where our first duty as conservatives regarding our remarkable country, culture, and civilization is to go restate the obvious with a new generation of Americans. COVID has definitively been a health pandemic, but never letting a crisis go to waste, progressives have brought us through what is now definitively a cultural pandemic. We just saw those powerful images. I want us all, just for a moment, again, standing, of all places, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the cradle of our constitutional republic. You have to internalize the fact that George Washington has been routinely besmirched. Lincoln has been toppled from his monument in 7 American cities. Benjamin Franklin, toppled. John Marshall, our greatest Chief Justice of the United States, his name has been peeled off one of the elite law schools in our country. Streets and schools have been summarily renamed. Businesses have been intimidated. And yes, ready for a new word? Plywooded. Churches have been torched. The Church of the President, across from Lafayette Square in the White House, torched. Our public buildings, the United States Supreme Court, the U.S. Capitol building, the 3 Senate office buildings, the 3 House office buildings, our Library of Congress, they have been gated, ringed with soldiers and German Shepherd dogs and M16s. Books have been banned. Pronouns have been imposed. The thought police that Orwell warned us of have come to the shores of the United States of America. And lives and families have been turned upside down and been placed in opposition to one another. And then, of course, there is the 1619 Project. This is rooted in Marxism. That is objectively the case. that our beloved, exceptional, remarkable country, the liberator country, has been turned into the country that was founded in the slave ships coming to the shores of Virginia, versus the 1776 Commission report. Did you notice the left pays attention to culture? President Biden was president less than 48 hours when the 1776 Commission was stripped, banned, and thrown, they thought, into the proverbial ash heap. Who wants the next generation? Remember, young people, and we know this had focus on the family, young people are 1/2 of our population, but they are 100% of our future. And the left has a plan to, in their words, and I'm quoting, get this generation. We have all heard, just in the last few panel meetings and speeches, that freedom can be lost, that there is nothing written in the proverbial stars, that America is now and will be forever the leader of freedom in the world. But you say, we're not all Abraham Lincoln. We're not all Benjamin Franklin. We're not all George Washington. You know, a lot of us are like Byron Tanner Cross. Do you know that name? Tanner is the type of physical education instructor you want teaching your children and your grandchildren. At 38 years of age, this Leesburg Elementary School PE teacher in Loudoun County, Virginia, a mere 20 miles from my front door, is a committed, energetic, enthusiastic, and deeply principled young teacher. He is a man who refuses to bow to woke politics and propaganda. So perhaps it is no surprise that Mr. Cross found himself wrapped up in a controversy last month after, yes, objecting to his school district's new transgender policy. In short, he refused to call boys girls and girls boys. And for that, what happened to him? Suspended and threatened with losing his job altogether. Cross took his case to court and, by God's grace, won an injunction. Officials were ordered to reinstate him as a teacher. My friends, Tanner is the best of us. And he is and could easily be you, your family, your neighborhood. When they attack him, they're attacking you. Loudoun County Circuit Judge James Plowman, to his great credit, called the school's suspension, and I'm quoting from his decision, extreme and vindictive. And of course, conservatives were the first ones rightfully to celebrate and to give praise to Providence for what happened. But remember, as we have learned this morning, there is an appeals process. Yes, I saw 3 people shake their heads, yes. And we are learning to find out now whether the Loudoun County School District will decide to, in fact, prosecute this case even further. And I think it's quite possible, in fact, that they will. But I must say, I am a hopefulist to the core. This hypocritical sense of language of love and tolerance on one hand, but vindictiveness and prosecution on the other side cannot stand in the American experience. I believe very strongly that the best days of our beloved Commonwealth and country are ahead, but as never before, we are learning that democracy is not a spectator sport. We have never needed conservatives to grab hold of the public policy, legal, communication lapels in America more than now. We need conservatives involved more than now. Remember, disparage and discouragement and despair is a form of sin. Because for those of us who are men and women of faith, it negates the hope of God himself. And in the American experience, we know for sure that this is a beloved and remarkable country ordained by God. So let's have hope, but let's begin and end every day by saying, onward. Here we go. Let's cancel culture. God bless.